fun time in my life. I went through all this and I was a very, very happy person. Always positive, always thinking about having a good future, and my biggest dream was to one day go back home and be able to help my mom and my dad to have the things they never had in their lives. I saw my mom struggling to raise 5 kids, even though I wasn't treated in the best way, even though I was rejected as a kid. I had that heart of giving back and changing their lives. Like, I really don't hold resentment towards my mother. Of course, like sometimes when I really think about it, it hurts, and it's the only thing that keeps us from building an even deeper relationship, because it's hard to talk about those things. But I care about my mom. She's one of the most important people in my life, and I want her to do good, So as I was doing all that, I was always thinking about going back home with the resources to be able to change my parents' lives, And I met Sabrina Sato, this girl from the TV world in Brazil, and she was dating somebody that was in the politics in my state where I am from. And when she saw me struggling to find sponsorships and struggling to make a living out of fighting, she was like, I'm gonna help this girl. So she started bringing me to this TV show called Pânico na TV, which is a comedy show in Brazil that was very, very funny. And she brought me in to fight against these guys that were, guys going to the streets and making fun of people. That was part of their job on TV, but people loved to see them getting beat up by a girl, And I was like, well, if this is what I have to do to, start getting noticed, I'm gonna go do that. And I went and I fought this guy Vesgo, I fought this other guy Bolinha, and then Sabrina took me back to my hometown and she told my story on TV until that time. And that's when I started getting noticed, and then people started to see more about me being really serious about this life. There was other girls training that wanted to fight me because I was now this girl that was on TV in Brazil, and that was kind of like a game changer in my life, because I got noticed more. So I cannot forget about this time of my life and this girl, Sabrina Sato, that really helped back then. And then, after that, a lot of hard work, a lot of studying, a lot of focused in my career. I was very focused in my career. Things started to change, I started to make a little bit more money, and doing all the other things outside of fighting, like doing appearances in MMA shows and trying to contribute in any way, shape or form I could. And when I was about 6-0 in MMA, I felt like I was ready to go to the next step in life, and I started asking my coach, Dad, to give me an opportunity to go fight for Strike Force, because there was no girls in the UFC yet. And when, he started asking Strike Force to have me there, they didn't have my weight division. I was willing to go fight against heavier girls, but they didn't want that to happen. They wanted me to wait for them to open my weight division. That never happened. The girls from Strike Force went to the UFC. That was when Ronda Rousey launched the bantamweight division in the UFC, and she started doing very well there. Now women's MMA started blowing up, and I was so happy because I knew my opportunity was about to come. It was like the time of my life where I was feeling that I did all the work and it was just about time to wait for the right opportunity to happen. And they launched a women's event called Invicta FC. And then, when they launched Invicta, a lot of people told me. I remember reporters, people in the gym is saying oh, this is not gonna last. Women's MMA, it's not fun. This is not going to last. And I was like, wait, because I knew that if I did the same thing the guys were doing and built the muscle of like doing more and being better every day of my life, eventually I was gonna make it. I knew that. I believed in that. And they needed a 115-pound girl to go fight for the title, and Misha Tate told Invicta FC that there was this girl in Brazil that was beating everybody in Brazil, and she would be a good fit for that opportunity. And they started looking me up, and the rankings were all messed up because nobody knew like how many women were training in the whole world. But I came in as the #1 contender for Invicta FC for my first fight, and that first fight for Invicta was very hard for me because 10 days out for my fight, I broke my nose in training, and my coach stopped the training and he touched my nose and he said, your nose is broken. So I'm sparring this guy 10 days out to my title fight for Invicta. It was going to be my first fighting in the US and making good dollar money. And then I'm sparring and I go for a takedown. This guy, it's going for a takedown on me at the same time, and then his head hit my nose and my nose just got destroyed. My nose started bleeding right away. My coach stopped the training and he said, let me see your nose. He goes and touches my nose, and my nose is broken. So he goes, go to the hospital and see what they'll say, but your nose is broken. And so I get to the hospital and the doctor tells me, well, your nose is broken, we gotta send you to surgery. I was like, no, doc, please let me go fight. He was like, no, if you go fight now, your nose is broken. Like if the first punch you get in your nose in this fight, it's gonna be so painful, you're not gonna be able to finish the fight. Don't do that. So that's when I made a decision of not taking that fight, which was very hard for me. It was my first opportunity to do something big, and I had to not take that fight. I had to get out of the fight, and it was a very traumatic moment in my life. But then I went home and I tried to understand what was the lesson in there. And I really understood that, all the training I did for that fight wasn't going to leave my body or my mind. I really understand that I needed to understand more patience. I needed to understand a lot of things that I didn't understand yet. I learned the lessons, waited for the next opportunity, and, had surgery on my nose, took care of myself, focused on school, and then, got offered to go fight there again. And then I fought and won and won and won, and there was a lot of winning because I was putting a lot of work in and always around the right people and being trained like with great coaches and great teammates, and I was put in a very good position. I put myself in a very good position, and then my life started to change. I started to make more money. Eventually I had money to go get a passport, to go get a visa to come to the US, and I was approved to get my visa to come to the US, which is a very hard thing. You Americans don't know, but it's very hard for Brazilians to come here. It's not easy. And I remember, when I left the embassy, the American embassy, with my visa and my passport, I was like crying because I knew that was gonna be the next step in my life, right? Like I had 3 huge transitions, leaving Mossoró, then going to Rio. Now I had a passport and a visa, and I had fights, and I was gonna take the money from the fights and invest in my future. So invested back in myself, my training, my supplementation, my saving money for my trip to come to the US. And I came to the US, and it was the moment where my life started to change and things started to happen to me. And it was like so many years of hard work, discipline, and a lot of resilience, a lot like saying no to the wrong things and saying yes to the right things, to be able to get to the moment where I knew that now my life was going to change forever.